What if I told you that stupidity isn't what you think it is, that the greatest fools in history weren't the uneducated or the unintelligent, but rather the ones who chose comfort over truth? There's a hidden theory about human stupidity that's been quietly observed by philosophers, psychologists, and social scientists for decades, yet somehow it never made it into mainstream conversation. Because here's the uncomfortable reality: stupidity isn't a lack of intelligence. It's a choice. And once you understand this, you'll never see the world the same way again. Think about it for a moment. We live in an age where information is everywhere, where knowledge is just a click away, where we have access to more wisdom than any generation in human history. Yet somehow we're watching intelligent people make catastrophically stupid decisions every single day. Educated individuals defending obvious lies, brilliant minds trapped in echo chambers, successful people sabotaging their own futures. How is this possible? The answer lies in a theory that dates back to a German theologian named Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who watched from his prison cell as an entire nation of intelligent, educated people descended into collective madness. What he witnessed wasn't a failure of intelligence, it was something far more sinister. He realized that stupidity, true stupidity, is not an intellectual deficiency, but a moral one. It's not about what you can't understand, it's about what you refuse to see. Bonhoeffer wrote that stupidity is a sociological problem rather than a psychological one. It emerges not from a person's brain, but from their environment, their tribe, their desperate need to belong. When people surrender their capacity for independent thought to the comforting embrace of group ideology, when they trade truth for tribal acceptance, they become functionally stupid regardless of their IQ. And here's what makes this terrifying. This form of stupidity is contagious. It spreads through social networks like a virus, and the more intelligent the person, sometimes the more elaborate their rationalizations become. You see, intelligence can actually make this worse. A smart person has the capacity to build incredibly sophisticated arguments to defend their chosen stupidity. They can construct elegant logical frameworks around fundamentally flawed premises. They can cite studies, quote experts, and sound utterly convincing while being completely wrong. This is why some of the most dangerous forms of stupidity come from the educated classes, from people with degrees and credentials and social authority. They have the tools to make their delusions sound like wisdom. But why do we do this? Why would anyone choose stupidity over truth? The answer cuts to the core of human psychology. Because truth is often painful. Truth disrupts. Truth demands that we change. And human beings, for all our supposed rationality, are fundamentally creatures of comfort. We'll do almost anything to avoid the psychological discomfort of cognitive dissonance, that unbearable tension between what we believe and what reality is showing us. So we engage in what psychologists call motivated reasoning. We don't seek truth, we seek confirmation. We don't analyze evidence objectively. We cherry-pick data that supports what we already want to believe. And we do this so automatically, so unconsciously, that we genuinely believe we're being rational. We genuinely believe we're thinking for ourselves. This is the most insidious part. Stupidity doesn't feel like stupidity from the inside. It feels like clarity. It feels like certainty. It feels like being one of the smart ones who finally figured it all out. Have you ever noticed how the most certain people are often the most wrong? How the loudest voices in any debate are rarely the most informed? There's a reason for this. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it reveals a profound truth about human cognition. We're terrible at assessing our own competence. The less we know about a subject, the more confident we tend to be. Real experts, people who've spent years studying something, tend to be more uncertain, more nuanced, more aware of the complexities and contradictions. But the person who watched a few YouTube videos, they're absolutely convinced they've cracked the code. This creates a tragic irony. The stupid person doesn't know they're stupid, and in fact, they often think they're smarter than everyone else. Meanwhile, the wise person is plagued by doubt, constantly questioning their own assumptions, aware of how much they don't know. Socrates said it best: "The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing." But stupidity is the opposite. It's knowing nothing while believing you know everything. Now, if this is starting to make you uncomfortable, if you're beginning to wonder whether you might be trapped in your own blind spots, that's actually a good sign. That discomfort means you're still capable of self-reflection. The truly stupid person would never make it this far in a conversation like this. They would have clicked away the moment their beliefs were challenged, retreating back to content that confirms what they already think. But you're still here, which means there's hope, which means you're ready for the deeper truth. So let me ask you something. What beliefs are you holding on to, not because they're true, but because they're comfortable? What parts of your identity are built on foundations you've never actually examined? What tribe have you joined, not because their ideas are correct, but because they make you feel safe, accepted, righteous? These are painful questions. They require brutal honesty. They demand that you separate your sense of self from your beliefs, that you're willing to be wrong, that you value truth more than comfort. And this is rare. This is incredibly rare. Most people would rather be consistently wrong and comfortable than occasionally correct and unsettled. Think about the people in your life right now, not the ones you agree with, but the ones you think are stupid, misguided, brainwashed. Notice that immediate emotional reaction you have to them. That's not rational analysis. That's tribal programming. Because here's what nobody wants to admit. They think the exact same thing about you. From their perspective, you're the deluded one. You're the person who can't see the obvious truth. You're the one living in an echo chamber. And here's the thing that should terrify you. One of you is probably right. Maybe both of you are wrong. But this raises the ultimate question. How do you know which one you are? This is where the theory gets really interesting. Because breaking free from stupidity isn't about becoming smarter. It's about becoming more honest. It's about developing the courage to question yourself as rigorously as you question others. It's about being willing to lose arguments, to change your mind, to say, "I was wrong," without your ego collapsing. The path out of stupidity is paved with humility, real humility. Not the false modesty that's really just fishing for compliments, but genuine recognition of your own fallibility. It means approaching every belief you hold with the question, what would it take to change my mind about this? If your answer is nothing, then you're not holding a belief, you're holding a dogma, and dogma is the fertile soil where stupidity grows. Here's a practical framework that can help. The ancient Stoics had a practice they called negative visualization. They would regularly imagine being wrong about their core beliefs, not to undermine their confidence, but to prepare themselves psychologically for the possibility of error. They understood something profound. The person who has never questioned their beliefs has never actually thought about them. They've just inherited them, absorbed them, accepted them without examination. So try this. Take your strongest belief, the thing you're most certain about. Now force yourself to argue the opposite position, not half-heartedly, but genuinely. Steelman the opposing view instead of straw-manning it. Find the smartest, most articulate person who disagrees with you and really listen to them, not to refute them, but to understand them. You might still disagree in the end, but now your position will be actually tested, actually examined, actually yours, rather than just borrowed from your tribe. This is exhausting work. It's emotionally draining. It's socially risky. Because when you start thinking independently, when you start questioning the narratives of your tribe, you become dangerous. You become unpredictable. You stop being a reliable ally in the tribal warfare that dominates modern discourse. Your own side might turn on you faster than the opposition ever would. But here's the secret that makes it all worthwhile. Truth is more satisfying than tribal belonging. Reality, when you finally face it honestly, is more interesting than any comforting illusion. The temporary pain of shattering your own delusions is nothing compared to the permanent freedom of living in alignment with what's actually true. Bonhoeffer discovered this in the darkest possible circumstances. Imprisoned by the Nazis, facing execution, he could have surrendered to despair. Instead, he chose to see clearly. He wrote that, "Against stupidity we are defenseless, neither protest nor force accomplish anything here, reasons fall on deaf ears." But he also realized that stupidity is not permanent. It's a spell that can be broken, but only from within. No one can argue a person out of stupidity. They have to wake themselves up. And that's what this moment is, right now. This is your invitation to wake up. Not to any particular ideology or belief system, but to the simple practice of honest thinking, to the radical act of preferring truth over comfort, clarity over certainty, wisdom over tribal approval. The hidden theory of stupidity isn't really about other people. It never was. It's about you. It's about me. It's about our shared human vulnerability to self-deception, our attraction to simple answers in a complex world, our desperate need to be right instead of accurate. But here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you recognize your own capacity for stupidity, you've already begun to transcend it. Real intelligence isn't measured by what you know. It's measured by your willingness to question what you think you know. Real wisdom isn't the accumulation of facts. It's the cultivation of doubt. Not cynical doubt that believes nothing, but humble doubt that remains forever curious, forever open, forever willing to be surprised by truth. So as you close this video and return to your life, carry this question with you. What am I refusing to see? What truth am I avoiding because it would cost me too much to accept? What am I clinging to, not because it's true, but because letting go would mean admitting I was wrong? These questions are your compass out of stupidity and into genuine understanding. They're uncomfortable. They should be. Growth always is. But on the other side of that discomfort lies something precious, the freedom of a mind that belongs to itself. If this resonated with you, if it challenged something deep inside, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit subscribe and join others who've chosen the difficult path of honest thinking over the easy path of comfortable delusion. Leave a comment with the one belief you're willing to question today, because that's how we break the spell of collective stupidity, one awakened mind at a time. The truth has been waiting for you all along. The question is, are you finally ready to see it?